Runway a few weeks ago released hosted models, which if you're not familiar with the hosted models option, this basically allows you to run a Runway server from a web page, and not just a web page where like you have to turn it on, turn it off, make sure it's connected to local host, those sort of things. This allows you to run a web page just sort of continuously. So you can set up a web page to generate a style GAN model, and then you can have folks pretty much from anywhere across the world interact with it. So today we're going to look at just how to set that up. So here's an example of my bone model, and when you type in a command here, you should get an image. Let's see if we have to reset it. There we go. So what this does is just allows you to type in any text here, and it will generate an image of bone. So I'm just going to walk you through how we set this up. Okay, so first thing you need to do here is we just want to make sure that whatever our code is running is working. So, and that just involves using a local host. So first thing we're going to do over here is I've opened up my bone GAN model inside of my Runway workspace. I'm going to hit run remotely here. Once this spins up, I'm going to use my p5.js code to make sure everything I've done has sort of worked. I definitely recommend trying to set this up first using just a local host and then converting it to the hosted model. So if this once it's set up here, we can make sure our network is set up. This isn't really a demo on p5.js, but just to walk you through how it works. We'll make sure that our local host here is to 8,000, and then we've got p5.js here running as well. So let's just hit play. And you'll see I got a text box here, and if I type in test, I get my bone model. So this is working exactly how I expected it. I have personally found that, well, in this example, we don't really need to run Firefox, but I found there's some new issues with p5.js and Chrome. But anyway, this is fine to run in Firefox or in Chrome as is. So let's just stop this. Let's come back over here to Runway and hit stop on this model. So now I know that this code works. We're going to actually come back over here into the network tab, and you're going to click host this model. So I want to move this model into a hosted environment. I'm going to click this. It doesn't really matter what subdomain you use here because it's just in the back end, right? So it's not actually saying this is the domain you're going to use for your web page. I recommend just sticking with whatever they have. One of the things that's kind of funky is you have to make sure that whatever you have here is completely unique across all Runway models in the entire ecosystem. So like I wouldn't name this like 1 or A, like that's most likely what other people are going to use. So I think it's fine to just use this. So we're going to hit host model. That takes you to the hosted model interface. One of the things you'll notice here is this is in this tab here, the little globe icon. You'll see it's yellow, saying it's waking up. The next thing to know is that in this command you've got this active key. Make sure this is turned on. The thing about active is, let's say, I don't know, we'll talk about this in a minute, but let's say you set this up, run on a web page, and like it goes up to the top level of some Reddit forum, and you're constantly realizing you're going to be charged thousands of dollars. You can turn this to off. That will just immediately turn it off, and that will make sure the web page doesn't actually work anymore. You probably want to do some error handling on your web page. It's not really the point of this video, but just to let you know, like, you will want to sort of error check these things. I'm going to turn this back to on just to make sure it's running. Come over here to code snippets. So you're going to grab the code snippets here, and this is what we're going to work with. So first things first, what I recommend doing is coming over to your p5.js file. So all these files work exactly as intended. Just click here and then go to File Download. This is going to download a whole folder of files. You'll want to open this up, and inside here you will see all of the files that we used for this p5.js example. Cool. So back in Runway, there's 3 steps to this. The first step is to make sure that what you have here is including the JavaScript SDK file. That's going to go in your HTML file, and the next thing is you want to use a couple of these pieces of code. I'll walk you through these steps. Basically, the first thing you want to do is just instantiate the model file, and that just uses the SDK to basically make a connection, and you're going to make some minor updates to parts that are already within your p5.js code to make sure this is hitting the right thing. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab this line of code. We're going to come here to this file, and we are going to open this inside of my code editor. You'll see at the top here there's a script for p5.js and a couple other things. It's probably good to put this after the p5.js just in case, I don't know, I don't think anything connects, but just That seems about the right order for me. Let's go ahead and save that. That's the first step that we've done now. Now the next step is to take this const model, and one thing to note is that it already gives you everything you need here. So you need the URL, which you defined previously, and you need this token. I believe this is a private token, so I don't know, maybe you don't want to make this public or put it up on the internet or put it up on YouTube like I'm about to do, but I can't imagine that this token, the only thing this token could really do is like give you access to this model. So it doesn't give you access to like your billing account or anything. So maybe it's fine. I'm just going to do it for this demo. I'm probably going to delete this model afterwards, so it'll be useless to you, but just something to know about. So first thing we want to do is we want to go into our p5.js file, and we want to go to open this into Sublime Text. Oh, that's the wrong thing. I want Sketch, so sketch.js. Open that up. Cool, so inside of here is just all of my setup files. I'm actually going to add that that model file right here. So that's just saying, you know, it's defining this model as a new object using this URL and that token. So let's go ahead and save that. That's step 2. We're done with that. Last thing we want to do is we want to come over here and we want to take this little bit of code, and we're going to make an update to our p5.js code. So if you've used any of my p5.js files, usually there's something in here that says get image from Runway or something similar, and you'll see very, very similarly there's a const path. So what we're actually going to do is change the way this works. So there is a const path, a const data, and then an HTTP post. I'm just going to comment all of this out for the moment, and then I'm going to paste in the code that I was given here. And let's get our indentations right. Cool. So inputs. So this is the input data. In my previous p5.js it was called data. I think it's fine to use this. So we're just going to copy this. So the z is going to be using a z index. And actually, let's leave that. Don't think we need that, but just in case. Let's use z. And then truncation is going to use the truncation value. This is all defined in the code before. So if you're writing this from scratch, you might want to include this stuff, but I think it's probably better to start with this. Okay, so our input data is now correct. And the last thing we're going to have here is we're going to query the model, and then when it is ready, we're going to get the output from it. Now there's actually maybe something a little bit different I would do here. I'm just going to go in and grab the code that I changed. One of the problems with this is that if you fire this off too quickly before your model is awake, you might get an error message. So we're actually going to use some async code here. Let me just find it really quickly. And model. This is pulled from a previous example. So you'll see down here, what we're doing is we're converting the function into an async function. So we're going to come back over here, and we're going to add async in front of that function name. That just means it lets JavaScript know that this is going to be asynchronously called. And then we're going to come over here, and we're going to use this. So basically we're going to say if the model is running, then we're going to query the model using inputs. This actually, I need to change this to inputs. And then once we get the result using this asynchronous call, we're going to fire off got.image. And got.image is basically where we start to actually manipulate this. So I think that's everything we need there. Yeah, it looks to be right. Okay, so what have we done here? All we've done is sort of redefined our inputs. We didn't really need to. We had already defined it up here, but I just changed it to inputs to match the example file. And then here we basically said, like, let's make sure our model is actually exists and is on. So once that's running, then we want to get a result back from the model using the asynchronous await call. And then once we've got it, we want to send that to got.image. So this should basically be running now. Let me make sure that my model is on over here. It is. So I can open this up locally. So if I come over here, it's not the right file. I want my downloads, and I want index. So if I just open this locally in Chrome, I should be able to type in tst. Maybe, let's see. Hopefully it's working. What's going on here? Let's see if we got any requests. I've yet to get a request over here, so something is going on. Oh, you know what? It looks like the model was asleep. So it looks like it's still waking up a little bit. There we go. Yep, so now it's working. So I have an example that I'll post a link to in GitHub where I've done a little bit more of a nice user experience where I've just sort of said like, hey, the model's still asleep, give it a minute for it to wake up, that sort of thing. Probably not necessary for a toy example like this, but if you want to build a really nice user experience, there's some additional code you can run. So this will run, it'll generate new images, and if you see here, you're getting all these requests. I'm not sure what the errors were. Maybe it was when I was like fiddling with it and had yet to wake up. One thing to note, and this is really, really important, every one of these requests costs you 1 cent. So you'll notice here that when I was running this model, as I typed TEST, it changed a little bit and it actually added multiple requests. So if you want to be really smart and save yourself some money, you might want to fiddle with your p5.js code to add like a little bit of a delay or a delay on this call to make sure it's not firing every keystroke, and maybe you wait 3 seconds. That way if someone stopped pressing keys, then it like fires it off. There's a little stuff that, you know, if you run this at a high level and someone comes in here and plays with this, you know, for an hour, you don't want to lose a bunch of money. So one thing to note is, again, each of these requests costs 1 cent. So I just spent 13 cents on this demo. So maybe I'll get some more viewers and followers and subscribers so I can pay for this on YouTube. But it is very important to know that like your requests can get pretty high really quickly, especially using this model where there's that like sort of funky little bit of code there. So, you know, if you're going to post this on the internet and people are going to play with it, make sure that you keep track of how much money you want to spend. You know, so this will get very expensive very quickly if people play with it and really love it. Again, the way to turn it off is just to hit this active button and turn it off. That will actually like essentially break your website, which is what you want to do because you don't want people using it anymore. But just be aware that there will be issues and you will throw some errors on there. So if you're doing anything else that is going to track those pieces, you want to do that. Cool. So lastly, folks have asked me like, how do I host this thing? This isn't I don't want to like turn this into a thing about how to host stuff on a web page. All I did is I just put this up on GitHub. So if I come here, so my GitHub page. It's pretty easy to set up a GitHub page that will also display publicly. You just upload your files to Git, and you come into settings, and then you come all the way down to the bottom-ish here and go to GitHub pages, and you want to set your source to your master branch. So that way when you push up changes, it will be automatically public. Now if you come here and come to this site, I assume it's going to be broken because I deleted that model. But just be aware that this is a really easy way to do it. The one caveat is, of course, that when you publish this to GitHub, you are publishing this private token. I think you should be okay, but you know, there's probably safer ways to do this. This isn't a web dev tutorial, so I'm going to leave that for you to figure out. Maybe Google around. If you have an idea of how to do this using GitHub, like please post something in the comments for folks to find. But this is pretty straightforward. It was 3 steps. Again, as long as your code is working when it's working over localhost, like converting it should be fairly easy using the technique I just showed you. So that's about it for running a hosted model. If you have questions, please feel free to jump into my Slack channel or ask questions in the YouTube descriptions.